right. Well, welcome back to Switch to Linux. So this is me and, of course, the kitty. And I'm just going to go ahead and do a couple of little stream health checks. Make sure we're looking all right. Okay, looks pretty good. All right. So, as promised, today we are going to have a look at some privacy items in the news. Just in case we happen to need it, I have my tinfoil hat right here. If I feel the urge to put it on, then I'll go ahead and put that bad boy on. Let me adjust my camera here a little bit. All right. So before we get into the stream, we're going to take just a few minutes here, and we're going to have a look at just some updates to the Farron OS. I'm just going to talk about them. More than anything else. Hey, kitty. All right. So, I had done a video a few days back on Farron OS, and there were some things that I said were really good in it, and there were some things I said were a little bit odd in there. And the Farron OS developers and I had a couple of conversations on some live streams, mostly sudo reboots live streams. And so he had let me know that they had made a few different changes to the system. And so I just wanted to go ahead and identify what some of those were. The first is they did finally put up my MD sums. We have MD5, we have SHA 256, so you can now do checksums on your downloads. They are still working on getting things a little bit smaller, but they're just kind of still working through all that. And then the next thing that he said he had done, I had not gone on and checked, is they had darkened up the original wallpaper that comes with it, I guess, and so it's a little bit, it doesn't clash quite as much. Things don't blend together quite as much. And the clock issue, the reason there wasn't a clock there is it was actually a bug in the system they were working through. And so at that point in time, what happened is they had said that they had fixed that, so there should be a clock in there now. So I do have my live key here. Maybe I'll put Farron on it next week, have a look at the improvement and the progress that they have made. But I just want to go ahead and do that, particularly since I had said I was going to let them know that I did see their comments. And if you check the video on the Farron OS that I have in the video archive, you'll actually see that they were commenting on there, and we were having a few little exchanges there, and so you can see the status there. So I think the takeaway from this is that the Farron OS team is certainly seeking community opinion as to what would make their system better, and it's a neat thing that as I do these reviews, how many times the people who are actually involved in making the reviews actually get in contact with me, and we can discuss some points. I know that happened on a few other distros that I reviewed as well. So with that being said, that was Farron OS. So what we're going to do here now is we're going to have a look at some news articles. I really wanted to take a look at some of the things because there were so many cool things that happened in the news this week that I really wanted to talk about. And they just kind of tie into a lot of what my channel's about. So to understand, I made the switch over to the Linux operating system for the most part. I'm not entirely on Linux. I spent most of my day working on Mac today on some projects over there, and I have a Windows computer behind me that I also do some work on. So, but overall, I do have a whole lot of different computers here that I do work on a variety of them. And obviously the video here and what we're doing is a Linux computer, and this one right here is a Linux computer. The one I'm doing my recording on and my video processing and pretty much all my switch to Linux stuff is Linux Mint 18.1 Sarah. My main work Linux computer. That was harder to grab than I thought it was. This guy here is running Linux Mint 18.0. And this is what is, when I'm on the road, this is my web design computer for when I'm on the road, and I also use this to record some Linux videos as well. This one over here is actually, this computer either boots into Ubuntu, Linux Mint KDE, which is what this is, or Windows 8, anymore, like maybe a couple times a month just to archive emails. So we have, I have a lot of Linux computers going. I really like Linux Mint the best, but the thing that got me into running Linux is the privacy concerns in Windows 10. Now, somebody had made a comment on one of my videos recently, and it was one of those comments where it was edited and stuff, and so I couldn't reply to it. So I try and reply to almost all the comments on my videos. So if you happen to not get a reply, it probably means I tried and just couldn't get the thing working. But it was those privacy concerns. So somebody had said, oh, well, if privacy was your reason to switch away from Windows 10, you can use it's like shut up Windows 10 or something. And there's that. There's Spybot has a Windows 10 privacy secure thing. So there's a lot of those options. But for me, I do not want to rely on some third-party software to tell my operating system to not spy on me. And that's really the reason I wanted to switch to Linux to begin with. And I'm not saying I completely switched to Linux, and I'm a web developer, so I have to know how all these systems work, and I need to know how the email platform works and all those other things. So all that being said, Linux for me means privacy, it means control. For the first time in a long time, I actually have control over my computer, and that is for me a good thing. I'm enjoying computing again, that I can change my themes around and I can choose if I want, do I want a modern flat UI, or do I want an old classic skeuomorphic, or do I want to go back and have my computer look like Windows 95 again? And all those are valid choices for me. But all of that being said, it is the privacy concerns that got me into Linux. And with that being said, I encountered a quite a comical article yesterday, and that is that somebody had taken the iTunes terms and conditions, very closely related to privacy, and put them into a graphic novel. And it is apparently unabridged, and I believe it. I did not read the entire graphic novel, but what I did do is I did actually get in here and I flipped through the whole thing. So this was actually done in a really neat, fashionable style here. So he did his, this guy did his article here. It's the unabridged graphical adaptation to iTunes terms and conditions. So the link up here is from Tumblr. And basically what the guy did is he picked all sorts of famous artists. And this was the cool thing about it. He picked all sorts of famous artists and did panels based upon the writing style. And so if you flip through here, you'll recognize some of these. And I'm not all into the graphic novels or the cartoons, but or who wrote them. But if you look at all these, you will spot that several of these are based on different ways of doing things. So there is literally a frame in here, like obviously this one is based upon the Peanuts section. And some of these, most of these, I have no idea what they are. This one's, who's this? Isn't this Dilbert maybe? The artist that did Dilbert, I'm guessing, just from how it's drawn. But there's one in here for My Little Pony. There's one in here for Popeye. I think I saw Nancy in here. This is like, looks like Adventure Time. So, I mean, so much has gone into this. This is awesome. But as you imagine, it's a little on the dry side. Obviously, I didn't read through every single frame for frame. But it is a fascinating adaptation of the entire terms and conditions. And what we see throughout here just is, first, it gives us an idea of how much is actually in these terms and conditions, because I don't even know how many pages there are here. I can scroll down, and then I gotta keep scrolling down. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. So there's 94 pages of this. So 94-page graphic novel here on the iTunes terms and conditions. And why is that significant? Well, I think that is totally significant in that we are perpetually surrounded, like to the point where everything that we have contains terms and conditions and conditions and terms and terms and conditions. You can't even buy like a blow dryer anymore that does not have terms and conditions. I mean, that's crazy. And of course, on my tinfoil hat time, was it last week or the week before, I think, where somebody actually wrote a smart hairbrush, and there's an app, smart hairbrush with an app. All right, I gotta grab the hat. I mean, come on, smart hairbrush with an app. Something's going on here. All right, enough of that. Save that for tinfoil hat time. All right. So, with all that being said, the privacy, the fact that we have so many more online apps, we have online apps, we have offline apps, one of the things that we have to start looking into is how the how the world interacts with how we interact on the internet. And so this brings me to the next level of interest, and that is the entire net neutrality. So I have done several different videos looking at the net neutrality, the ISP privacy rules. And so you know that I'm not a huge fan of this new chairman. How do you pronounce his name? I forgot to. Is it Ajit Pai or Pay or whatever his name is? I forgot to look up the proper pronunciation for his name. But this guy is literally like, Wheeler was the best thing to ever happen to the FCC, and this guy's just coming in and destroying his entire legacy. Because we had several issues on the table. One of those, like eliminating set-top box competition. Well, I don't have cable or any of those types of things that would require a set-top box. I just don't watch that much television. But I do have internet. And if you came down with the same thing to say, I am now forced to buy or lease, rather, a Comcast modem or a Time Warner modem for my internet needs, I am going to rebel against that quite a bit. Okay, I think we might be back. I had an internet connection. Apparently, my ISP did not like me talking about net neutrality stuff because, they want to have a dirty, ugly monopoly on everything. We should be back. I apologize for the delay. I'm going to give it just a minute to see if anybody wants to jump back on. Internet hiccup. Internet hiccup. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with the streaming. I don't know. We had probably about 5 minutes there, maybe a few minutes less. I'm not sure exactly how many, but right around 9:12 we had yay, I'm back. Okay. Woo. Okay, can anybody in the chat tell me where we left off? So I was kind of discussing the internet neutrality and the new chairman kind of wanting to eliminate everything. It's all a conspiracy. Gotta grab my hat. It's a conspiracy to silence me. It's a conspiracy, it all is. No, I don't know if it's quite a conspiracy. But anyway, let's see. Okay, we're back up to about half as many users as I had when I noticed that the internet had hiccuped on me. So, all right. So, let me close this down here. And close that down. And hopefully we are fine. So, I was talking about my ISP, and then my ISP died. So, whatever. All right. So anyway, net neutrality. Now, if the purpose of the FCC is to help create jobs, net neutrality is not the thing you want to kill. Okay. So, and there's been a whole lot of misinformation about what net neutrality is, what it isn't, all this. And so, overall, what's going on here is we have this thing called net neutrality. And what this means is that an internet service provider, an ISP, cannot limit what internet sites are feeding in and where. Now, in the heat of all of the discussions about 2 years ago, which is ancient history and modern day thing, people were coming in saying, well, net neutrality, this is bad because if we are allowed to block, if we're allowed to have all of the ISPs controlling information, we can block pornography. There was a problem with that. A bunch of studies were done. Pornography was faster than ever, but it was the conservative sites that were slowed down. Because that's the way the media works. That's the way the world works. A lot of the mainstream does move in that general direction. Net neutrality, what this would mean, if you were a Comcast user, and I know Comcast has their own streaming services, and they're somewhat connected with Hulu, they could choose, if net neutrality goes away, they can choose to say, you want Netflix? Well, you just have to pay extra for that. They can now become gatekeepers, not of the internet as a whole, but as the internet in individual parts as well. So, with all of that being said, what we need to do is make sure that the net neutrality stays still. It needs to stay in place because the ISPs already have a de facto monopoly. Now, it may not be a complete monopoly, but where I'm at right now, and I am in a large place, like not massively large, I'm not New York City large, but even in New York City, you really have one option. But I'm in a fairly large place. There's a few different internet companies that I could get a couple satellites, I could get a couple DSLs, and I can get one cable, okay? And with that, if I want anything over 5 Mbps, I only have one company to choose from. Well, I'm live streaming YouTube. I could not do this over a 5 Mbps. I can watch a standard definition YouTube channel on what the good DSL has in this town. So I effectively have a monopoly against my internet. So with that monopoly against my internet, if they are now allowed to regulate the things that I see, I am locked into a company, and then I'm locked into paying what they want me to pay for every little item on there. So if I want Netflix, I have to pay Netflix, and I have to pay my company some more. And that's the problem. So if you eliminate net neutrality, this is devastating for the internet. So the good news is that a lot of senators and other people have come out to say that we really need to make sure that we have we can maintain this. And so a whole lot of people are coming out. Not only people themselves, but also a lot of congressmen, a lot of senators to say, we need to keep net neutrality. And right now, it looks like the FCC has lost its ever-loving mind. They killed the set-top boxes. That favors ISPs. They wanted to kill the privacy rules. That favors ISPs. They want to kill net neutrality. That favors ISPs. Would you just put on a giant racing suit with all the ISP logos so we know who's paying you? So net neutrality is a bad thing. And moving beyond net neutrality, it's not just a matter of what is the ISP can do, because what speaks to the privacy rules and regulations, what speaks to the privacy items there is that the data collection portion. So what the privacy rule is with internet classifieds as a common carrier service, they are limited as to the data they can collect and how long they can collect it and store it. Okay. If that gets removed, they have a lot more freedoms in what they do, and that's important because as we have some balance back and forth, looking at everything, we have to remember that there is a lot at stake in our own personal privacies, and this leads me to the next article I found. All right, so. Leave Spicer alone, or why DNS registration is horrible. And DNS registration is horrible. I'll tell you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get caught up on, well, I don't have a lot of comments here, but I'm just going to go ahead and look at the comment stream. Yeah, we had an internet hiccup. Yep, we're back. Yay, we're back. A few seconds behind. And yes, there is a conspiracy to silence me. No, I'm not that important, I don't think. Give it a couple years, maybe. I don't know. Toby, where does it stop? Where does which stop? I'm not sure. I don't know where does any of this stop. I don't know. And then Lion and Lamb Ministry. I don't know. There is something nefarious about net neutrality. I completely disagree. Please shoot me some thoughts about about what you're thinking, because net neutrality itself means that the internet cannot be blocked by an individual ISP. That's what it means. Now, there was a whole lot of misinformation spreading around, and a lot of that misinformation was actually spread by the ISPs. And so net neutrality, as it was, basically what I'm arguing is, as the internet was from the time we started until these rule changes a couple years ago, that's exactly what we need to do. We need to go back and say no internet company can fiddle with the transmission of data from any given server. Let's leave that in somebody else's hands. But let's use that as a live chat discussion point for a little bit while we start looking into data collection. Now, if you're not familiar with DNS, this is something I'm intimately familiar with because this deals with websites and web design, and I'm a web developer. So I have several websites, or several domains really is what this is. I have several domains registered, and what I have started to do is I have a business which exclusively is there to register these domains under that business name, so that all of the information about myself and my clients who I register domains for does not get into the hands of these people. Because the biggest challenge is that these DNS records are absolutely open. If you go and look up a website, now, there's two factors. The first is you can purchase domain privacy, but there are also long-going archives going back that, while I may have domain privacy now, it does not stop me from going back and look at the archives at some other point in time. And if you want an SSL, you have to turn off your privacy for a short period of time. And if bots are constantly harvesting the data, that is a gathering point for information, because they can constantly ping back until they find something that is useful. All right. So what's going on here is, of course, Press Secretary Sean Spicer. There were a lot of leaking issues with personal data, but what he did is he had registered a blog under his name, and you never do this if you're registering a domain name. Like, go get a post office box or something. Figure out a way that you do not have to put all your information there, but it's all required. The problem is these guys grab this information, and you will get spammed and scammed until the cows come home with the data on this stuff. And I received at least 5 or 6 emails today with these scams linked to all these. And what they're doing is they're harvesting the DNS information and then using that to auto robocall. They're using it to robo spam, just all sorts of stuff. They're adding your names to lists because it is required to have your phone number, your address, and all this other information on file when you purchase a domain name. So this is a field that there's definitely is something to be said. Now, this is kind of niche because not everybody has a website or cares to have a website. But for those of us that do have a website or do care to have a website, well, we have to keep this in mind. There's data collection going on. Now, this is quite intrusive data collection. But there's a lot of other data collection. And I have a few more comments here, so I'm going to pause before I jump articles. All right, when they start regulating what we can and can't see and do, where does it end? That's what I meant. And that's exactly what the question of net neutrality is. Just to be clear, I have no problem with net neutrality as a principle or concept. I have some serious concerns about net neutrality as legislation or public policy. Okay, yes, I think that we are in agreement then. Absolutely. Because it needs to be something that we say, hey, long-term steadfast rule, no ISP is allowed to control anything. Leave it at that. Leave it at that. And while we're at it, let's keep it classified as a common carrier service so that they're not collecting a lot of data as those gatekeepers. Okay? Otherwise, you might get me to change my opinion on VPNs. All right. So data collection as a whole. That should not be shutting off behind me. I like having that screen on behind me. Caffeine is on, so it should not be shutting off. Every now and again, caffeine does not work on that thing. But caffeine works for me, so. All right. Okay, so. Are we ready for some fun data collection principles? As you know, I'm concerned about data collection of all sorts. So here's a guy. Now, oh, that's right. I wanted to do this article first. Data collection for a man's pacemaker. leads to arson charges. Now, granted, the guy did a bad thing, and I hope that there were better ways that they could have possibly identified this. However, all of that being said, when we're in a world where the information inside your pacemaker is used against you in court, now we really have to question what type of data we're collecting on people. In fact, this is so bad that, of course, this one's fun. Prosecutors are getting warrant for an Amazon Echo data in Arkansas murder case. So what happened is a guy was found dead in a bathtub, and they're like, who's killed this guy in the bathtub? So they subpoenaed the information from the Amazon Echo because, of course, it records everything that you do. And this is a challenge for me. This reminds me, I should have grabbed my copy of 1984 over there. This reminds you of that 1984 where everyone's television is constantly listening. And it was unveiled at CES, I believe, that LG is now doing away with any product, like any of their appliances that are not smart appliances. You want a stove from LG, it is Wi-Fi connected. Now, what purpose your stove has to be Wi-Fi connected is so totally beyond me. In my refrigerator, am I that lame that I cannot build a shopping list? I mean, I know I'm a barbarian, but I still have a magnetic piece of paper attached to my refrigerator that I can write things down on a list. I know I'm a barbarian, but I mean, that's barbarian-like, isn't it? I'm crazy. Why do we need so many things smart connected? Because a smart connected thing can collect data. And of course, this is what happened with Vizio. So Vizio this week gets hit with a lawsuit. And this was nothing, by the way. They got hit with a $2.2 million suit. Yeah, they should have got hit with a $2.2 billion suit. So what Vizio did is, starting back in 2014, they started collecting pretty much every piece of data they could possibly grab, including merging this on with other online databases to gather a complete, down to the individual person, data collection protocol. But they were doing it without letting anybody know and storing the data indefinitely. Both of those things violate the United States privacy laws. Well, sort of. And the problem is that they were doing this without any information. In fact, a friend of mine had a Vizio TV. We were trying to get the thing off the internet last night. You know that you can't go into the internet settings and say disconnect? No. To do that, if you have a Vizio TV and you'd like to take it off the internet, and I highly encourage you to do that, what I had to do is turn on the Wi-Fi sharing on my phone, try to connect to that, inappropriately connect, get the thing to fail out, and then the thing would disconnect to the known internet that was there. So that's kind of crazy that we have a device that's collecting every bit of data it can possibly grab on a person. They're doing it without knowledge or consent, and then you can't even disconnect the thing from the internet if you want to. That's crazy. That's crazy. And in my opinion, a $2.2 million fine is nothing. They should have gone through the books and determined exactly how much money they were made off of this. And I think that should be a long-standing thing for any company. If you violate principles like this, you should be forced to pay 10 times the net profit that you made from doing something like this. And if the company goes out of business, good. Maybe you shouldn't have done that to begin with. That's my thought. So we have to be careful that there's data collection, and this data collection is being used in the weirdest of ways. I mean, there was the case, I didn't pull up the article here, but there was the case about the city that used the Shoppers Club card, cross-referenced the people who bought pet and pet-related items with the people who had actually registered their pets in the city, and sent threatening letters to those whose names did not match up. Like Shoppers Club cards. That's why I don't like to use a Shoppers Club card. And it's a very simple thing. If you go to the store and you can get a discount for Shoppers Club cards, you simply ask, is there a store card I can use? Every case I've found, well, I think Wegmans doesn't allow you to do that. But most other stores do. Weiss, they actually have in my town. They have a place there right at the register. They just have one there on the register. Click, so everybody gets the discounts. Of course, somebody raised the question of what about gas points? I don't care that much to save 10 cents on gas. In fact, there's a couple different places I know of. If I go pay cash, it's a good thing. You know, We'll get to that in a minute, actually. I'm going to do something else there, but we'll get to that in a minute. I have a few more comments here. Let's have a look at these. Okay. Okay, just to be clear, okay. All I'm saying is when we have deregulation has occurred, innovation has bloomed, such as telephone services. Lashark says use Tor. Yeah, I mean, it's getting to that point where if net neutrality completely goes away and all this stuff goes away, I might be using Tor a little bit more. Of course, you can do Tor downloading the Tor bundle, or you can do Tor from like a Tails install. There's a few other anonymizing type things as well. Toby says use DuckDuckGo. That is one of the fabulous ones. I hate it personally. I just don't like I like their philosophy. I just don't like their format. It's hard for me to look at and do a search and read. Let's have a quick look at DuckDuckGo. I love their philosophy, by the way. DuckDuckGOP, apparently. DuckDuck GOP. All right, so here's DuckDuckGo. Of course, they give you this nice little pop-up. They don't store your personal info. They don't track it. They don't do any of that. That's the good thing. Like I said, I love the philosophy of this. Let's just look up Tor because somebody said Tor. Why not? I'm going to get spied on even more. I got to grab my hat. Hold on. Yeah, I got to get my hat. Yeah, get my hat on. All right. So this is what, to me, it's hard for me to see the various results. That's really the only reason I don't like it. I love their philosophy, and actually they've gotten better. Over the last couple of months, they've actually gotten a lot better. This is getting to the point where I can actually read it. Let's get rid of GOP. I prefer Start Page. Of course, here's what Start Page looks like. Very much like Google, except in fact it uses the same Google principles. It just doesn't feed you information that it thinks you want to see. And I also like this feature over here that I can search for articles just published in the last 24 hours. So if I want to look for something very modern or very recent, I can use this function over here to do that. So yeah, I like Start Page. IXQuick, of course, was based in Start Page. DuckDuckGo is another fabulous place to use. And I encourage you, de-Googlify as much of your life as you can. Use open source browsers like Chromium instead of Chrome. Use Firefox, of course. And search engines use things like Start Page, use DuckDuckGo, because they don't track you as much. Now, you can go on to Google and you can set a cookie on your browser to tell it what not to store, and I'm just a little leery of that. All right. I don't like how much power the telecoms have, but the reason they're big and powerful isn't just because there's lack of government regulation, but because of it. Government regulation are written by large corporate interests which collude with officials in the government. Yes. One of the things, though, that I thought was really good in the Trump administration is he did get rid of that revolving door policy. The revolving door policy, if you're not familiar, this is the concept where we'd see this a lot in industry. We saw it a lot in telecom, and we actually see it a lot in nutrition. Firefox is being killed off. I don't want to hear that. By who? Please provide more details. I'm curious about that. And I love Firefox, but I agree with you though, Lashark, that I am seeing that more distros are coming with Chromium pre-installed rather than Firefox, and I think it's a shame because I do think Firefox is still a great browser, and it still is my browser of choice. However, all that being said, back to this revolving door policy. The revolving door policy was that a person would be in this high-level CEO, CTO, some executive position in a company, and then they leave that and go to work for the government agency regulating it. And then they'd flip back. And then they'd flip forward. And what happened is you'd get this revolving door, and so all these policymakers were becoming the CEOs of the business and vice versa, and it ended up being really bad. And everywhere where that has happened, like telecom, like nutrition, all hell is broken loose, and that's kind of scary. All right. So with that being said, revolving door's bad. Revolving door's bad. Kali, yeah, there's a good one. Kali, I don't know if I'd use Kali as a regular distro though, because Kali is actually just a distro designed for penetration testing. So, I'd be leery of that. All right. So, obviously, data collection is being used in weird ways. Like, I wouldn't even have thought, it's not even on my radar to use data from a pacemaker to determine if a guy committed arson or not. Interesting, for sure. And I'm curious, is this something that, I didn't get a chance to read everything in fine detail. Like, actually, I read the articles in detail. What I don't know is, how do you get the data off the pacemaker? Do they have to cut this guy open? Or can they just scan them? Okay, now we have all your heart data. And that's the part that scares me. It's the same thing with the health trackers, right? If I could get one of these health tracker things that did not have any capability of connecting to a cloud server hosted by the company's servers, I'd buy it. I think that the data I'd get off of that would be absolutely useful. It'd be absolutely amazing. But I am not going to share that level of intimate data with a corporation. I'm not going to do it. So of course we have this. Everything's being Amazon Echoified. In fact, you can even get kits to convert your dumb appliances to smart appliances. You can get an Amazon Echo kit for your refrigerator, which has stuff inside and outside to convert your refrigerator to a smart refrigerator. And can we just not make lists anymore? Of course, if you're doing nutrition right, you shouldn't be having these big lists and filling everything up so much. You should be keeping things pretty simple. Your grocery store trips, you should go in, do a little loop tour around the edge. Maybe you cut down that middle, a couple little middle aisles. I know I always got to cut down that middle aisle for coffee. I'll be up all night. Yay. All right. So we should have that going for us. The other thing that we should have going for us, though, is maybe some spices, things like that, spruce up the cooking. But for the most part, you should get your shopping done around the edges. We don't need a smart refrigerator. And please, somebody inform me as to the purpose of a smart mic. Now, I know the smart microphone. I mean, if I am all the way in my office, a good 20 feet away, I can have my microphone send me a text, or my microwave send me a text when the microwave's done. Really? Why? And smart stove. I got to double check. Did I shut the stove off? If you needed to double check if you shut your stove off on an app, wow. Smart dishwashers. Ooh, your dishes are done. Huh. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. So you get people using voluntary data. Of course, the Vizio issue was not voluntary data. What's the problem with having all this data out floating around? Well, here's the problem. We have identity theft. We have hackers. Identity theft is like the biggest crime in the world, and there's like practically nothing we can do about it. So this is neat. What can you do against this type of thing? Let your credit score die. Let your credit score die. Now, that's not going to totally prevent things. But if you get out of debt and you stay out of debt and your credit score dies, you might eliminate a lot of this stuff. Of course, all of these big credit card or my train of thought has derailed. All of these credit reporting agencies, they've been selling lately all their services so that basically they've been selling all their services so that you can monitor your credit. Like monitoring your credit's going to help. Like they have those absolutely stupid commercials. I kind of wanted to break TVs when I saw them. It's just like guy goes in, he puts his feet up on the desk, and I'm going to get this loan, and this is exactly the right, and I want that plant too, because I know my credit score. That's so stupid. That's so stupid. All right. Identity theft is the biggest thing on the rise. What's the best way to keep identity thefts and hackers and all this kind of stuff? What's the best way to prevent that? Information's not being there. Remember, Mr. Miyagi, Karate Kid 2, best block, no be there. If you do not have credit cards all over the place, if you're not using your credit card quite as much, if you don't have all that Shoppers Club data, if you don't have maybe the pacemaker might be quite required, but if you don't have the smart refrigerator and the Alexa listening to every word you say, and Siri and Google and the Eye of Sardon, otherwise known as Cortana, sitting there on your desktop listening to every word that you say, you don't have as much information out there. And that's what I'm arguing for. Now, obviously, it is difficult to get out of debt and stay out of debt. I teach Financial Peace University once a year, usually, so I would highly recommend that as a great way to get out of debt. If you don't like his method, look into other methods as well. But, realize that a credit score is not an indication of how good you are with money. A credit score is an indication of how much money you've borrowed from the bank, because there are 5 points. Hi, Fidel. Hi there. How's it going? Basically what happens is, there's 5 points to determine your credit score, and all 5 of them are how much money. Let's look that up, by the way. Elements of a credit score. This is the 5 elements of your credit score, blog.credit.com. 5 elements of your credit score, your payment history, aka how much debt have you had and how well do you pay it back. Your credit utilization ratio is how much, basically your credit card utilization ratio takes into account your revolving credit balance versus the available credit in your name. So how much credit do you have versus how much credit do you use? If you have zero use and a lot of availability, that's not as good. If you have zero availability and a lot of credit score, that's also not good. The ideal number is right in the middle there. Length of credit history, how long have you had debt? Different types of credit. What types of credit? I have a diversified credit portfolio. I have debt on cars and debt on loans and debt on houses and debt on my dog. Oh, foo-foo, you're gonna get repoed. And hard inquiries. How many times have you asked somebody to look at your credit so you can buy a loan? 5 reasons your credit score, and all of them deal with how much debt you have. So with that being said, this is a case where somebody freezes their credit report because of fraud and identity theft. They attach a PIN so that they could freeze their credit, which doesn't always help. And then they set this PIN. Of course, the person calls in, because this is called a social engineering hack. They call in, oh, I forgot what my PIN was. Oh, well, can you answer these 5 questions? Well, an identity theft guy knows these 5 questions, particularly if he knows everything about you, the type of your car, everything. He's collected all this data about you. Of course they can get in. This is why identity theft is like the #1 thing on the rise. And by the way, if you lock all your accounts with your cell phone, they'll just use this to get your cell phone carrier to issue you a new cell phone. They'll lock into all your accounts with a 2-party authentication. I've talked about how to get around that before. All right. So that being said, what do? Well, the best thing that you can possibly do is utilize, if you go to, I think it's like freecreditreport.com or something like that, you are allowed once a year to get a full copy of your credit reports. And these are mine. I get them every single year, and I encourage everybody in the United States to do that, because you want to get a copy of these things and you want to look through them and make sure there's nothing weird on here. Make sure everything that's on here you remember actually doing. Otherwise, somebody has probably stolen your identity at some point in time. You need to deal with it. All right, so utilize that resource and get your credit reports. Now, I will warn you, Experian is a little weird. You'll see that my Experian is in nice color and my other ones are black and white. That's because I couldn't download it on here. They forced me to give them a phone call to get a free copy of this. Of course, with all that, they just wanted to sell me their stuff. And Experian actually, this is hilarious, the credit reporting agency falsely used my credit card. They signed me up for something I certainly didn't order, that's for sure, and my bank agreed. Wow. And then this brings us over. Let's, before we jump on to the last topic, it's a little different. I have some more comments here. Hi, Fidel. How are you? All right. phasing off. I have not heard anything about phasing off Firefox. In fact, they've been pushing out updates. Last I knew, in fact, Mozilla even did a whole logo and brand changing. So it's not something. I don't think it's something that they're doing. They're phasing out. Not that I've heard of. Let's see. It's all to collect data and sell you products and manipulate your life like a scary business. That's true, and that's the problem, right? Marketing is about getting the message in front of somebody enough times. You get the message in front of somebody enough times, eventually they will buy your product. Okay, that's really what they're trying to do. So, in fact, in studies, they found that it doesn't. Even if you know what marketing is, you know the purpose, it still doesn't matter. The message still impacts you. Now, of course, ABC's coming down. This is in the, I want to say, 80s or 90s. There's this whole debate, mostly with the violent content in television. And ABC comes out at that point in time and says, there is no evidence at all that anything you see on a television program can influence a person in any way. So one of the Hollywood critics at the time, what's his name? I forget the guy's name. He comes out and he says, well, they better start refunding millions in advertising, because if they truly do not believe that a message matters and influences us, then what are they doing selling ad time? And that's a valid point. So all of this data collection is to narrow in tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter onto each individual person exactly what they want to see to sell them that product. And that's why if I'm going to see an ad, I'd prefer to see an ad related to what I'm looking at, not an ad that it thinks I want to see. And that's a big challenge. So that's true. All right. Well, Kali is good, but Qubes OS is the way to go for security. I am not familiar with that. I'm going to write that one down. I'm going to look into that one. And I think Qubes is another one of the. That's another one kind of like Tails, I believe. A lot of security stuff. I'm going to look into that one. That sounds interesting to see. Hi, Fidel, once again. Is it Fatal? How do I pronounce that? I don't want to say Fidel. That sounds bad. Fatal Arnold, how are you? What Linux am I using? I am using Linux Mint 18.1 Cinnamon Edition with, I want to say it's like a glass something theme. I totally forget. Let me find my theme. But Linux Mint Cinnamon. And I downloaded a bunch of cool themes. Let's see. I'm using Glass Mint. And I actually like to change my colors. I'd like to change my greens to yellows eventually. But I really like this. It's a very nice skeuomorphic, semi-transparent type, thing. I really think this desktop theme is pretty sweet. And of course, I've decked it out with the logos that I created in Blender. So I created a series of these for my website, all in Blender. All right. And let's see. It's only kidding. It's not really practical to use Kali as our primary system. I agree with Switched. Use cache as much as possible. Be truly aware of your online presence. This is correct. Yes, be aware. It's like, I'm not saying let's go disconnect our lives from the internet and go back to old dumb flip phones and live in a cave. What I'm saying is I want the choice. I want the ability to say, yes, I will, or no, I will not. All right. Kali, no, you're right. However, you can use Qubes as a daily driver. I will look into that OS. What information you broadcast to the world, like social media sites, and in general, be aware of the reality. That is the IoT and the current threat landscape. You know what? I'm going to pause right here and jump into the last article because it's about IoT. We've touched on IoT a little bit. Now, this doesn't seem like it's IoT, but it is. The biggest challenge, there's a couple big challenges with IoT. The first is the perpetual connecting of all of our devices. Like, why do we need these devices so perpetually connected? But the second thing that we need to look at is, with these IoT devices, we keep them perpetually turned on. And a perpetually turned on device means that the memory is perpetually loaded. So here is a large amount of practically invisible malware because it wasn't on a file system anywhere. And that's where the virus scanners generally check. There's some that do the memory checks. But here, this bug was infecting at least 140 global banks, all in the memory. And this is significant for the IoT devices because the bots that we see, the botnets that we see that are really being utilized to take things over, what's happening is, if you can imagine a single bullet going at something in a web server, for example, well, you can do a denial of service, attempted denial of service attack, but most servers now are built for that and won't happen. But if you have 100,000 devices that can all be forced to ping at one time at one local server, you can shut the thing down in a distributed denial of service attack. So all of these Internet of Things devices are being utilized in this manner. That, which way is it? Man, this is hard to do. Okay, I understand why some people have difficulty with this. Looking at this article, all of these things in here are viruses that are loading into the memory, and that's how these botnets are put together. It's not stuff that you can install on the IoT devices. It's things that you infect the IoT devices. How do you clean your IoT devices? You power cycle them, which clears the memory, goes away, and that reboots. The problem is with all these banking servers, they never reboot these things. They never restart them. The memory is perpetually going. And so now you have practically invisible malware all distributed throughout the country on all these devices. Now, the IoT is going to bring the internet down. Internet of Things is what's going to destroy the internet for the most part. On these servers, we're getting that same crossover onto the servers, and this is a challenge. In fact, later on this month, Brian Lenduke, the famous Linux Sucks series, is going to be doing a lecture on IoT, and it's at the conference, I forget, the California or wherever. And he said he's going to have it on his website at the end of the month, as long as all the permissions go through and stuff, which it shouldn't have a problem. But check out Brian Lenduke's channel at the end of the month, maybe beginning of next month, whenever that's up. He's going to be doing a lecture on the dangers of IoT devices. And of course, every guy who really knows about these things, like the only people all excited, ooh, IoT everything, my whole house is connected to my smartphone. It's the people who don't know much about technology. This stuff is dangerous, people. It's dangerous. Avoid the Internet of Things devices. They're scary. They hold botnets in their memory. They're utilized to co-opt things. If you have an entire house full of smart stuff, your smart stuff is potentially being used by hackers to take down other websites. Oh boy. Well, that was a long rant. Let's see. All right. For all of this security talk, using Android connected to Google Play Store with Google Now, Google Assistant defeats the purpose. This is true. This is why I do not use Android as much as conceivably possible. I do have an Android, which is my business phone. I hate Android, but being as I'm a web developer, I need to make sure sites look good. So I have a big Android. I have a little iPhone because I prefer the iPhone, although if I can get a Linux phone working out here that's good and stable, I'm looking into the possibilities. But yes, we need to be careful of this and be careful what we're doing. Of course, this whole thing is being broadcast on YouTube Live. But nevertheless, again, it's not about just saying we're going to totally disconnect ourselves from the world. It's about sitting back and saying, I want the choice. I want the choice to what information is out there. I want the choice and all that. All right. Mint. Yes, this is Linux Mint 18.1. Agreed, Lamb. Be aware of your Androids. I'm glad I'm wrong. It would suck to lose Firefox. Yeah, don't scare me like that again, man. That's not good. You will go nuts with cubes, nothing like Tails. Yeah, I'll have a look at it. Personally, right now, I am on, like Tom, Mint 18.1 Cinnamon. Yes, I had put out some requests. I was doing some live feeds with Fishman Loves Linux, and I'd asked them, what distros do you think I should consider? And I asked a lot of people what distros I should consider to run on this new computer here. And really, I went back to Linux Mint Cinnamon because it works. It works with my workflow. I can theme it up nicely. Have had no issues, no problems anywhere. I mean, it just works. I knew it worked. That's what I wanted. All right. Okay, personally right now I'm on... Okay, Canny, I haven't upgraded from 17.3 yet, but it ain't broke. Yes, Canny, that is correct. Linux Mint 17.3 is pretty rock solid. The reason I upgraded my main web development computer to 18.0 is because connecting to OpenVPN does not work on Linux 17.3, Linux Mint 17.3. There's something wrong with it. And actually, I don't even think it was just OpenVPN. I think it couldn't connect to any VPN. And that's why I upgraded, because that did work. Oh, the irony. Kenny, do you have an AMD GPU? Okay, no, Intel GPU. Okay. IoT is the dumbest thing ever. Yay, I agree. All right. Wait, sorry, GPU. I can read. NVIDIA. Okay. Yeah, this computer is running an AMD. It's running AMD R7 Radeon 4 gigabyte on board. I bought it because it was dirt cheap and 4 gigabytes on board. All right. Let's see. Linux 8.1 will work with no issues. Right, Mint works when I want to fiddle. I install the latest Fedora. Yeah, I've never had good fun luck with Fedora. I'm just not a big Fedora fan. It has its elements. I just couldn't stand all the rolling releases, constantly breaking everything. It was driving me crazy. All right, so we've been on for about a good hour, and I'm not sure what's going to happen there with that little internet bleep in the middle. I'm not sure what that's going to mean for the video on YouTube. Hopefully I don't have a big thing in the middle. If I can, hopefully I can edit it out. But with all that being said, maybe what we'll do is we'll end it with the cats. Should I engage in the cat call? Here's the cat call. Temptations. No, I'm not being paid by Temptations. Kitties. Oh, there they both are. All right. And I like giving them each 3. Let me have both kitties come up and say hello. Oh, there's this kitty. There's this kitty saying bye-bye. He's saying right now, feed me. All right. And here's this kitty going. There's this kitty. Yay. Yeah, you want to say hi? Say hi to the people? This one talks. No, maybe not. Now they're wondering, it's like, where are our snacks? Go ahead and give them the kitty snacks. All right, kitties. There you go. There you guys go. Okay, so with that being said, I think what I'm going to do is, let's see, a couple more comments coming in. Let's make it works. Use the new Lineage ROM and sideload certain apps. Good job, thanks. Appreciate it. How was the live stream today? I know I've been working with trying to make sure the live stream looked better, and I'm hoping that Crinkly Bag is irresistible. Irresistible Crinkly Bag. All right, hey man, thanks for taking time to host these. This is my first live webcast, but I've seen several of your reviews. We appreciate you. Thanks, I appreciate it. Uh-oh, he's unfazed by the crinkly bag. All right, so I am off to, actually I have some cooking to do. I know it's late, but you know, it's still early for me. So I'm off to make some fabulous, I'm thinking chicken bacon ranch wraps, and I'm gonna make some pudding and some butter tonight. So let me know if you guys like that kind of stuff, and maybe I'll do some offshoot kitchen video because ask my friends. I'm an irresistible baker. It's dangerous to come to this house. I got pudding pops, homemade ice cream, homemade cookies. All right. Looks good today. Awesome. Live stream looks good. Sweet. It looks like the only thing I did, let me just show you guys what I did. The only thing I did is over here on the frame rate is I actually set this at 4 rather than letting it be auto. All right, noms, LOL later. All right, we will talk to everybody later. Thanks for coming by, and I'll try and have, the next time I know I'm going to do something live, I'll try and have it on my channel with at least, I don't know, at least half a day's notice. So with that being said, thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.